Nice toss.
So, welcome to the first session of Island Writer.
The first session.
The first session.
Thanks
You're
for
the first
news.
author of having this brand new thing for the library.
Oh, sounds good.
So, Margaret just came up with a name, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to call it Island Writers, and you are an Island Writer.
Last I checked.
How many have you written?
Total of 10 books.
That many?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. What was your favorite one to write? See,
I think for the fun part of it was Living Sanibel, the nature guide to Sanibel and
Oh, cool.
Captiva.
Now, how long has that been out?
10 years.
Is there anything in your book that has changed that is not true anymore? Or they've advanced. If you're going to do a second edition, would you change anything?
Yes, well, they took the bear away, so I cannot include the bear now because the bear is gone.
Oh, the bear's gone.
If I was going to do a third, he was not in the first, nor were the coyotes, but the coyotes are still here. So
that's right.
Nature changes.
The bear wasn't in the book.
Wasn't in the first edition, wasn't the second edition, and if we ever do a third edition, which is unlikely, the bear would be gone again.
Okay, but then the coyotes should take over.
The coyotes are doing fine.
Well, that's good. Any other major thing that's different in the...
Yes, I would say the biggest difference is when I wrote the book, there were only maybe 500 or 600 marsh rabbits. Now there are 4.2 million marsh rabbits on Sanibel.
We need more coyotes.
A lot more.
Well, it's like anything. The population goes up and down.
It is actually, rabbits go on a 10-year cycle. I looked it up the other day.
Because when we moved to Rabbit Road 9 years ago, I went almost 2 years, 3 years before I saw a first rabbit.
I bet you can't go 2 minutes without seeing a rabbit now.
We down there saw 15 or 20 rabbits between your house and our house.
Yeah.
It's insane. So that was a good book. How many have you published?
9 of the 10 were published. The one that wasn't published, I actually didn't write on Sanibel. I wrote when I was in college, called Untitled, and it's stapled together. It's really kind. I printed 1,000, and there's probably about 10 left.
Scrap paper? Or?
No, it's actually quite interesting. It's kind of fun because, it wasn't really a professional operation. There was no ISBN then. It was just fun.
Oh, what was it about?
It's a collection of short stories and poems, mostly.
Okay.
Early writings.
Could you put that on YouTube now or something else? Or
I could, but I probably won't. Actually, some of the poems were used again when I wrote Rhythm of the Tides, which I think was published in probably right around 1998. No,
Okay.
a little later than that. 2002, 2003.
well, now in this day and age, it'd be so easy to put those stories online somewhere. In fact, I'm sure the library would do something like that.
Yeah, it would, and I probably won't get around to doing it, but it would not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be 100 people here on the island that have written, short story. Every other short story.
Mhm.
It's crazy. But, to put it on there and then, in 100 years or something, look it up and go, man, that guy was nuts.
Yeah, that's true.
Or you could, read it in 2043.
Right. Which is a thought.
I was trying to bring your book in.
Oh, 2043 is the year of the bad
Bad
decision.
Decision, yes. I enjoyed that book immensely.
Well, the year of the bad decision is ironically and sadly becoming totally true. As a matter of fact, Bill Gates the other day proposed the best way to handle climate change would be to put something up in the stratosphere to dim the sun, which is the exact premise of Year of the Bad
So
Decision.
you're way ahead of Mr. Gates then.
Not financially.
Not yet. Not until this hits the airway. That was a really cool book, but how many people did you kill on that book?
Actually, technically about 6 billion.
6 billion, so mass murder.
I didn't do it, the computers did.
The computers did. That's good. Now, 6 Mornings in Sanibel. You've published 5 or 6 of those, haven't you?
7th edition, and
7th
we're going to
edition.
celebrate. It's kind of a good book, probably my most loved and most read, definitely, because we're already even in ebooks a couple thousand.
Really?
But it's the 7th edition, and in November it marks the 20th year of its publication.
Wow.
And it still sells quite well. We sold
So-
some today, as a matter of fact.
Oh, now, how many, when you do an edition, is that like 10,000 or 20,000? Or
When we print additional editions, it varies from 3,000 to 5,000.
Oh, really? So there's a lot of these books out.
I'm going to guess there's probably about 30,000.
Wow, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's been a very successful title.
Any movie people sniffing around,
You know, it's
such
it's,
as myself?
yes, it's sad. There was just one book that I wrote back in 2001, A Choice of Angels, which had to do with a Muslim Christian conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually looked at by several people, including, I had been told, Mel Gibson, amongst others, but no one ever optioned it, and I've not heard anything since.
Okay, so you'll just be an unknown movie critic.
Right.
So
Unfortunately, it would still, to this very day, especially given all that's going on still with this conflict, it would still make an excellent movie today, but so you never know.
yeah, I thought 6 Mornings in Sanibel would be a good movie. It'd be easy to shoot, good storyline. A lot of people go, I've been to Sanibel. Yeah,
I think it would make a better play. It would actually be a very simple play to put on.
well, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
How long, like 6 Mornings in Sanibel, how long did it take you to write that? Is it like a 2-week ordeal, or is it
Oh, no.
5 years?
No, it's about, I would say on average, anywhere from 16 months to 2 years.
That long?
Yes. And it just depends on the book. When it comes to like something like Living Sanibel, which was tremendous amount of research,
I can imagine, yeah.
that took a full 2 years. The Living Gulf Coast, because I was able to take a lot of the feeds and the information from Living Sanibel, which I had already done the research,
Yeah.
and just tweak it a little bit for Off Island, that probably took about 16 months.
That's still a lot of it. Yeah.
Oh, it's a lot of work, yeah, it is.
But obviously you enjoy that kind of stuff.
Well, I certainly learned a lot about what lives and thrives on Sanibel.
That's why you're supernaturalists such as myself.
Yes, we're both supernaturalists. Yes, that's good to know.
That'd be really good. I'm trying to keep the questions going so we don't have any lag time, but I could edit this. So,
Oh,
is there anything you'd like to add to your?
yeah, I'm kicking around another novel. I don't know if or when I'll get to it. I'm hoping in the next couple of years. But it isn't a local novel, per se, like 6 Mornings, which are easier to sell on a local and regional basis. But it has to do with the different phases of life that people go through. And it's called Between Floors.
Between Floors?
Yes, it's 7 people stuck in an elevator overnight,
Okay.
coming out of a courthouse.
Oh, all right. So I guess you good guys, bad guys.
And there's both in this planet.
Yes, I would think so. That'd be an interesting. Has that ever been done? How do you come up with these ideas? You just
Well, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because in the case of 6 Mornings, I actually came up with the idea in a dream. And it's probably the only book that I've ever actually acted upon. I was trying to figure out how to tell these different short stories that I wanted to tell, and I realized that I could tell them all if I had somebody else telling the stories to someone else. And then I thought, well, where would that happen? And then I went, it could happen on a fishing pier,
oh, okay.
where you're sitting there with long periods of time and not catching anything. The bite slows down and you start chatting,
Yeah.
and before you know it, you become, how should we say, you become friends.
Yes.
And that's what happened with 6 Mornings.
So, do you know anything about fishing?
Yeah, I know a little bit about fishing. That's too funny. I know a lot about fishing.
Yes. When's the last time you went fishing?
But just a couple, 3 weeks ago.
And how's the? You were telling me that the fish out far out were tremendous.
Yeah, sadly, because of the red tide situation last year in the fall, late summer and fall of 2018, everything near shore got clobbered
Okay.
with...
Now you're talking 10 miles out. Is that near
about
shore?
15, 16 miles
Okay.
out is as far as the red tide impact really hit. We generally deep sea fish, we start at about 17 miles, which is just on the edge of it, but that wasn't impacted. And
Because of the depth of the water? That had,
I don't know
and the
what
flow? Or?
I think it was the flow. I think
Yeah.
it was the how far out the nutrient-rich water went. And what happened is within about 14 miles of Sanibel all the way around, everything died.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a matter of the fish dying. All the shellfish died, all the sea squirts died, all the sponges died, because the water went oxygen depleted, or eutrophic is the
Yeah.
term for it.
Yeah. Well, that's too bad.
But way offshore, the fishing is phenomenal.
Still,
Still, to this day.
I remember you mentioned some that maybe because of the price of gas went up, not many people are fishing out that way, or
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is, but it's as good as it ever was. And that's, having fished here now for 30 years, it's still phenomenally good offshore.
you did a lot of fishing and worked on a fishing boat in Alaska.
Yeah,
What did you do up there?
I was a king crabber.
Just like
Most dangerous catch.
yes.
My boat sank 2 years after I left it.
Oh, that's no good.
No, luckily I wasn't on it.
How'd you handle the cold? That's for me. That's the worst part of being on a boat, even here.
Yeah, it was very, very, very cold. And my buddy, as a matter of fact, the reason we had to quit was because he got pneumonia, which is really easy to do in Kodiak, Alaska, and down the Aleutian chain because every day is 38 degrees and 100% humidity.
Oh, that just must be horrible.
Yeah, you're never warm. But you work so hard.
And did you make any money?
Not very much. I made enough money to make it back. When I was young, I was 21.
What did you do it again, knowing what you know now?
No,
No.
They wouldn't hire me.
Well, you can't hire an old man. But if you could go back and be 21, would you do that same?
Yes.
Oh, you would do it again?
Yeah. It was
Now,
really fun. I'll talk about wildlife. How about viewing 2 million birds at once?
That's pretty wild. What, and these were shearwaters or
Everything.
everything? Did you know
Sometimes
birds
I
back
would
then?
wake up and I would look over a bay and I would just say, "You've got to be kidding me." It's killer whales and porpoises and whales and thousands upon thousands of birds as far as the eye can see.
Wow. Is it still like, I was up in Kodiak a couple years ago and I don't remember the bird population, but it could have been the season and we just went there to see the bears, which we did see 5 or 6 Kodiak bears.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun there to see them. It was a lot of fun. So you've been married for
A lot of years. My wife is not going to forgive me for that one. 34 years, I believe.
34 years. Okay, you got 2 kids.
2 boys. One of them is a writer, works for E&E Publishing. Actually, he just became an editor, Blake, and he lives and writes in Washington, D.C.
Okay, I have seen him on CNN.
Yes, he's been on National Public Radio, and he's been on not CNN, the other one that does Book TV. You know the one.
Yeah, you came to watch it. I had to,
Yeah,
had to watch it with you.
yeah. The what is that called? Where they the one where they have the I forget the name of it. It's escaping me. I was on it too. It's that cable TV, the one that covers the Congress and the news. And all
C-SPAN.
that. C-SPAN. He was on
Yes.
C-SPAN. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
this will probably make C-SPAN.
Yes, I'm sure.
Real estate.
Yes.
You dabble in that.
That is really what supports me, because if I were a writer, I would probably be living
In a tent.
somewhere under the library where it's dry and I could sleep well at night.
How long have you been a realtor?
Oh boy, 30 some years, 32 years, I believe.
And Sanibel's a great place to be a realtor.
Yes, it is. It's a wonderful place. Wonderful people who are really committed to the environment, which is nice.
That's the secret of Sanibel, I think.
Yes, it is.
It's but then I read something like there's like 250 realtors on the island.
Yes, there are.
That's like a realtor for every 3rd person.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, sometimes it seems that way.
Yeah, that's very. In fact, I met you through real estate, kind of.
Yes, you did, and I was out
You were
fishing.
out fishing, and
When you wanted to make the offer on the property you bought, to which I've completely forgiven you, by the way.
then I met Molly. She sold me some of the furniture in my house, and turned out it wasn't even her furniture.
No, it's not unusual. I'm now, in terms of real estate, I'm pushing 1,000 transactions.
Wow.
So it's been a wonderful, wonderful run.
Yeah. What's the hardest part about real estate? Working all that work, and then the deal falls through. I remember my dad was a realtor, and he'd put weeks and weeks of work, and then some strange thing that wouldn't show up, or
Yeah, you learn to understand that not everything you're going to do is going to end up in a paycheck, but a lot of times it comes back to you. Even if the level of service is really good and high, it comes back to you in possibly a referral years down the road,
yeah.
or the buyers come back to you, or the sellers come back to you. I think if you do a good job at anything, the the longevity is built into your level of service or level of writing.
That's true. I think that's probably true with any type of work.
Yes, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, if you're a crummy whatever, you're
not going to last. It's highly competitive, but I never really think of it that way. I just go about my business.
Have you done anything in the government? Any boards or anything like that?
No, I actually haven't. But it's funny, though, in real estate, because of the diverse kinds of people who come to the island, I've worked with, matter of fact, I'm working with an FBI agent tomorrow, but I've worked with NSA agents, CIA agents, and FBI, so they probably have quite a dossier on me.
I would think so, yeah.
I mean, you didn't have to mic me. I'm sure the NSA would have picked me up.
Or the CIA. We won't talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's not get too close to home.
I ran into Porter Goss, and he was the head of the CIA here. He's a really nice guy.
Very nice guy. I really admire Porter.
Yeah,
he did a ton for this city.
Yes, and all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Charles LaBeouf, he was just phenomenal. I was reading his book and talked about, hour and hour and hours and days and months of meetings and stuff like that. It's just...
When the city of Sanibel was formed, had it not been formed, I'm positive the island would have been ruined.
Would have been like Marco or something like that.
Worse.
Worse.
It would have been worse than Marco.
That's
left to the way things were going then.
Yeah. It's
back in '75, it was a boom town. As a matter of fact, the state of Florida sued the city of Sanibel for its incorporation.
Yes, I remember
and
that.
Barely won that lawsuit.
Yeah.
The city did. It was very close.
It's just crazy. How many lots are left on Sanibel?
Oh, land-wise, there's probably only about 250, but the truth be known, as some of these older ground-level structures built in the late 60s, shortly after the causeway and before the 1979 elevation rule, a lot of those houses really are priced and valued at land value. So as the inventory ages, a house like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath somewhere on the island becomes functionally obsolete and really becomes a lot.
Well, we were looking at houses back 9 years ago, and some of the prices were like, it's ridiculous, paying $600,000-$700,000 for a house that's built in the 70s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And today, many of those houses are just knocked down, and they start from scratch, which isn't a bad way to go.
Except you have to pay the $600,000-$700,000 to get your lot.
That's correct. That's a drawback.
Yes, I see a lot of building, a lot of construction here on the island now, house-wise. Seems
there has been. It has slowed up considerably this year, in no small part owing to the tariffs in the additional costs for construction material.
Okay. We built our house 9 years ago, and we were the only house being built. It was just the bottom of the market. So.
Yeah, you built during the recession.
We were very fortunate.
Yes.
And we really, really enjoyed living here. Can you imagine living anywhere else?
I can, but I'll tell you, it's tough to beat. Right out our backyard, we've got the Sanibel Gardens Preserve, which we walk almost every evening and watch the seasons change.
And what do you call some of them walks when you do that with?
Nature walks.
I've heard another name.
What is that?
The drunken nature walk?
The drunken nature walk. Well, we have been known to have a cocktail or two.
Yes.
It's pretty easy to do.
Yes.
But the other thing about Sanibel that's so appealing to me, and appealing to Molly as well, is the bike paths.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Because it's so nice to have dedicated bike paths where you don't really have to worry that much about traffic.
Yeah.
And the traffic on Sanibel, especially the city employees and all the Sanibel businesses, all of the tradespeople, from Sanibel Glass and Mirror to Sanibel Plumbing, they're all so respectful of bikes because they know how many bikers there are here.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's a joy to bike this island.
Yeah, it is. And I see you bike almost every day, don't you?
Yes. We try to bike every day, anywhere from 6 to 10 miles.
Yeah. Do you do a certain loop, or you just...
We've got a whole bunch of loops.
You're loopy?
Yeah, and then we'll do the reverse graveyard loop, the forward graveyard loop, the Dixie Beach loop, the Donax loop. But it's nice to break it up. And sometimes when it's not so dry and the sandboxes aren't created, like during the winter months in Ding Darling and Sanibel Gardens Preserve, we'll bike through all those trails.
Yeah.
Which are fabulous in the summer when we get the rain because they get very hard.
Yeah.
And one of our all-time favorite bike trails is the Indigo Trail.
Okay.
In Ding Darling, which is gravel and about 2.5, 3 miles long.
Oh, that's the one that the cutoff behind the.
Yeah, it comes back down off of the Cross Dyke Trail.
Yeah, when they redid that, what, 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
It took forever to get a bicycle down there because it was such loose gravel.
Yeah, now it's
Really-
all compressed and
Yeah.
it's beautiful again. And
It
once
is.
again, it's better in the summer months with the rain than it is in the winter months. When it dries out, then it starts to get
Yeah.
loose again.
I was there yesterday. It was pouring down rain. I think there were only 2 other cars on the whole thing,
Yeah.
which is amazing. You know, because you go there in the winter and there's thousands of people.
Yeah, it's really nice to go now in the summer, and it's so nice that they paved it with
Oh God.
smooth pavement rather than that permeable stuff that disintegrated. And we actually, the last year that was in, we stopped going through Ding completely
Oh, I did
because
too.
your back teeth would fall out by the end of the
I
trail.
took a group through there with, and it was horrible.
It was really unbikeable
They
for about a
still
year.
have a road like that takes you into the bay, Tarpon Bay.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, just maybe
that's
a
so
couple hundred
short.
yards. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so short. That wouldn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah,
It
but
was
it's
really a much improved.
really pretty. Now, do you see a lot of wildlife when you're on your bicycle?
Yes. Yeah. Well, like any time you go through Ding, and this is in Living Sanibel, which of course you know is at that and Living Gulf Coast are both out of print. And there's only a handful remaining with us. But you have to go through Ding Darling at low tide. If you go through Ding Darling at high tide, all of the feeding grounds, which are the mud flats or the tidal flats, they're all covered in 2 to 3 feet of water.
Yeah.
And you're not going to see anything other than an occasional shorebird or a bird that's wading along the drive, but you're not going to see those flocks and flocks of egrets and
Yeah.
spoonbills and whatnot.
Yeah, I was there yesterday and it was high tide. It seems like the last 4 or 5 times I've been through, and I try and go through once, twice a week, been high tide. And I know a lot of it depends on people go, well, when's high tide, and look at the charts. The chart doesn't really tell you because it's wind driven.
It can change tremendously. You can get a high tide and a low tide day
Yeah.
if the wind is pushing hard enough, especially in the winter with the north
yeah.
winds.
Since it's a bay inside of a bay inside of a gulf,
What happens the best thing to do is to look at St. James City and add about 2 hours.
okay.
And then you'll find it to be, for the most part, fairly accurate.
Yeah. I've had people go, where? I didn't see anything. Well, you come back in 3-4 hours, it could be a completely different ride.
It's a completely, yes, it
So
can
you
be.
just
I've
never
seen
know.
5,000 plus birds on low tide, and one time I think we went through and we saw one ibis on high tide, and I'm thinking, to see an ibis, all I got to do is look out my backyard.
Yeah.
Chickens,
yeah.
Sanibel chickens.
Well, I always get, when I go through something like that and I don't see stuff, I'm like, I'm not looking, because if you really look, there's always something to see somewhere, something that you hadn't seen before. I mean,
The one thing I would love to see, and I've never seen, and I've never actually even heard one, is a mangrove cuckoo.
okay.
So for me, they don't exist.
I have seen 2 or 3 in Ding Darling, but then I go slow and looking for them, and I'm a better birder, so
Yeah, you are. That you are.
it's just amazing. Well, this is kind of fun. How do you think we're doing?
I think it's.
with the first riders of
I think
Island
it's
Riders.
fantastic.
Island Riders.
I think it's fantastic. I think the only thing I would like to do is of my nonfiction titles, and people should probably know this. The only one we have any inventory left, and we're talking about less than 500 books, is the book I wrote in 2007, Alligators, Sharks, and Panthers.
Okay, I have that copy.
Deadly Encounters with Florida's Top Predator, Man. I've done a lecture off of it now, but I changed the subtitle, Alligators, Sharks, and Panthers, or How to Avoid Being Eaten, which everyone is interested in.
Yeah.
But that too has been picked up by a Rhodes Scholar, and we're probably going to be out of that inventory, I would say, within 2 years or less.
Oh, good. Can you send me a list of all the books, and I'll put them underneath as
Yes.
a scroll,
Yes, I'll send you
and where
JPEGs and
where to buy them. And
a list of them, yes.
now, you said, do you have any ebooks?
Yes. The ebooks are 1 nonfiction and 3 fiction titles. The nonfiction is Alligators, Sharks, and Panthers,
Okay.
which we were able to do and get many of the postcards in. And of course, what's fun in ebooks, they're in full color. The old antique postcards we used in that book.
Oh, okay.
So they're in color in the ebook. But the other ebooks are 6 Mornings on Sanibel, Way Under Contract, a story about a hurricane hitting a fictional barrier island called Seashore, but really everyone kind of knows what it really is. And then A Choice of Angels, and those 4 are the only ebooks that we have.
How do you get paid for that kind of stuff? Is it a lot less than a printed book? Or
Oh yeah, it's really only a couple dollars per. I think they sell for somewhere around $4 a book for a download. But we've downloaded now several thousand.
Oh, that's good.
So it's been pretty steady. I mean, some months are better than others, but it produces a pretty steady
Do you
income.
ever see writing a book and never going to actually print, or just strictly into?
Actually, that's what I might do, or just do print on demand if I end up going ahead and publishing between floors.
Now you had Indigo Printing
Indigo Press.
Press. Is that, when I think of something like that, I think of a bunch of people, actually cranking out the book.
No, the Indigo Press is not the same as the printing company. Actually, all of the books we printed with Indigo Press were printed in the United States. The 2 beautiful full-color nature guides, Living Sanibel and Living Gulf Coast, were printed up in Mattoon, Illinois, and they just did a fantastic job.
Yes, it's a very pretty book.
Sadly, the company has been sold, and I don't know about the quality, but United Graphics was the company when I did it, and it was outstanding, beautiful, beautiful. They went on to win awards, and the Living Gulf Coast won an award from the Florida Publishing Association as the best non-fiction book printed in, 2010, I believe it was, or 2012.
Do you like writing fiction or nonfiction, or is a little of both?
I love them both, but I love them for different reasons. In many ways, writing nonfiction, especially when you're dealing with fact-based data or information, it's easier because you can't. Yeah, it's easier because you can't make it up, and frogs don't have personalities, or they don't have a lot of dialogue.
Well, you could
Riggit is about it. I guess the only dialogue would be to try to do a mockingbird. That would be
a lot.
That would be 400 different calls.
Yeah.
But what's so beautiful about fiction is that anything can happen, but it takes a lot more creative energy. It's not as much research and tailbone energy as it is creative energy, making sure the characters are consistent and behave like those characters would, or the characters really truly become real.
Yeah.
So when people are reading the books, they say, "Oh, I know that person," or "That person's believable."
Yeah.
You don't have any of those concerns when you're writing nonfiction.
Okay.
Even if you're writing like a biography or something, you're just going to tell the quotes that you know and you can attribute to that person. You're not going to sit there and make up that person.
Yeah. Well, say when you live in Sanibel, when you talk about the frogs here in the island, where do you get a lot of the information? I know you go
Well, a lot of
your own
my
frogs.
a lot of my critics say I just cut and paste right out of Wikipedia, but I don't. I get the information. When I wrote Living Sanibel and Living Gulf Coast, it was a compilation of probably at least a dozen bird books, including books by the Stokes and Peterson's Guide and many others, especially for locale. But I lean very heavily on the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I became a member for those couple of years, and that was indispensable. Then Wikipedia, and then other sites. I'll tell you something interesting, though, about that book. I was the first one, even before the Cornell Lab of Ornithology adopted it. I was the first person that I knew of that gave the lifespans of all the species.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And that was a bear to find that information, because it was, as odd as this seems, no one seemed to give a damn about how long any of these animals lived, so it was not readily available, and that took a lot of internet time.
Well, I would think that just trying to figure out how long the birds live without it had to be banded, I would imagine.
That's how eventually I found it, but I didn't find it through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I found it through the U.S. Geological Survey.
Okay.
And that was in studying banded birds.
Yeah.
And people probably don't know this, but wild birds live, on average, probably a third to a quarter of the time they're capable of living in domestic.
Oh, sure, yeah.
In domestic. For instance, a parakeet in Australia, we have a parakeet.
And I know the parakeet.
Yes, you know you've babysat the parakeet. The parakeet in captivity can live between 15 and 25 years. In the wild, their average lifespan is between 3 and 5.
Yeah, because they get eaten and
Well,
killed and starved.
There's a lot
to
more.
death.
Yeah, there's a lot more trouble out in the real world.
Well, I know one of the longest living birds, which we have here on Sanibel, is the magnificent frigate,
Yes.
and they tend to live 40 to 50 years, which
Yeah,
is
it's
amazing.
amazing.
It is.
It is amazing.
But seeing how they just put their arms out, that's all they do.
I just recently learned is how they sleep, because a lot of people don't know this. Magnificent frigate birds, pirates of the sea, can remain in the air for up to a year.
Yeah.
So I always thought, well, how do they sleep? They sleep by turning off either half of their brain, one half, but they do it every 10 seconds.
Yes.
It's insane when you think about that adaptation.
Yeah.
Some of the adaptations of wildlife are just so amazing.
When I read that, I thought, I do that every once in a while, because you're just like, oh, and then you wake up again. But yeah, that would be tough when you're flying up there, and
You know, they don't have an option.
kind of like when you're driving sometimes. Oh,
It's funny to think of a bird sleeping while it's flying, but they do in fact
well,
do
dolphins
that.
do the same thing, don't they? But not 10
No.
seconds at a time.
No, the whales do too. Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll stand vertically in water columns and sleep, but they'll only sleep for like an hour, half an hour, and then they
Yeah,
they
I
gotta
saw a
breathe.
manatee sleeping. I thought it was dead, and I called the wildlife.
Oh, did you really?
And the lady goes, "You sure it's dead?" I go, "Well, I hadn't moved in 20 minutes." She goes, "I'm not telling you this, but chuck a rock at it." And I did, and it swam away.
Yeah.
I'd never seen one sleep, not move at all.
Yeah,
So-
he was up so he could breathe, obviously. Yeah, they just
They float
feast
on the surface,
themselves
yeah.
a little bit and sleep.
Sleep away. So,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Do you see many manatees when you're out offshore?
No, we don't. No, because I'm too far out. Manatees, even to see them along the beach is really exceptional. They're basically a back bay because all of their habitat. They're not going to dive 90 feet for food.
Yeah, it's true. And they're all
But the
vegetarians.
offshore, one thing we do see, which we never see inshore, I've never seen one ever inside of 20 miles, is the pan-tropical spotted dolphin,
Okay.
which is a slightly smaller version of the bottlenose dolphin, but way friendlier.
Okay.
They come right to the boat every time. They're just really fun.
Well, that's cool.
Yes.
Do you ever see those big moa or sunfish?
Not here, but I've seen them in the Keys.
Yeah, those are just,
I don't think we've got them out here.
I don't know. Well, I was reading years ago when the first great white shark attack was actually detailed here, was one of the Calusa Indians was eaten, and Spanish missionary was there taking notes, and it happened right here, somewhere along this coast here.
A lot of people don't, and I don't believe I included them in Living Sanibel because they're so rare now.
Yeah.
Even worldwide they're rare. But that's totally believable because they've come within about 25 miles of Sanibel and they've seen them collared. I've never seen one offshore. I've seen tiger sharks and lots of bull sharks.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a great white out here. But back then there were probably many more great whites, and a lot of people don't understand this or don't know this because they're extinct. When the Calusa were here, there were a lot of seals here.
Right.
They were called the Caribbean monk seal. They went extinct in 1956. The last
that
one
late?
was seen. Yeah.
Wow.
1956, the last one was seen off of Jamaica. And there's little doubt that the great whites, whose predominant prey are seals,
Yeah.
probably came right by our beaches looking to eat these,
Sure.
especially in the winter,
Yeah.
because great whites love cold water. They do not like hot water.
Yeah.
Tiger sharks love hot water, and quite the opposite.
Okay. Well, is there anything else we should cover?
I think we're pretty good here. You can edit it down and have fun.
Oh, that'd be good. So
Thank you.
it's our first Island Writers.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me, Ken.
Oh, that's the end.
That's the end. Thanks.
All right. Well, I guess it went pretty well.
Yeah, lots of stuff you can use from that.